I did stand-up comedy for the first time last night. My thoughts on that right after this. Hey everyone, I'm Yoel and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So grateful to have you as always. And in today's video, I'm going to discuss my first time doing stand-up comedy ever, what my experience was like, and some of the lessons that I took away from it. So I first saw like a good friend of mine doing stand-up probably even a year ago, I would say. That's kind of how long it's taken for this idea that I could maybe do it to germinate in my head, to get to the point where I was finally ready to do it. Okay, so it wasn't an overnight process. I actually met some people afterwards, before and after the performance, who were telling me that they also want to do it, but they don't have the courage. And I was able to reassure them with my experience that, hey, I also never dreamed that I would ever do it. I'm 44 years old. And if you would have asked me even a year ago if I would ever have the guts to get up and do stand-up comedy, to go and try and make people laugh, put yourself out there, I never would have dreamed that I would have the ability to do that. So my number one lesson, I would say, is to not give up on yourself, and that you can really expand yourself to heights that you may not have thought that you can reach. Now, I'm not trying to speak overly, I don't know if I'm sounding sanctimonious or holier than thou when I say expanding to new heights. Of course, I'm not suggesting that I don't have plenty of personal growth work to do on my own. But the point is that in this regard, to be able to do something that's beyond your comfort zone is really a representation of expansion of oneself. All right. I've talked about the idea of being expansive. And for me, this was something that really expanded myself beyond my comfort zone, which is a real victory. Because the performance itself, I wouldn't say was the biggest victory in terms of the comedy routine itself, which I'll get to. But in terms of that sort of being able to go beyond one's comfort zone was a real victory. And for those who kind of have thought of doing something, it doesn't have to be stand-up comedy. Maybe it is stand-up comedy or any sort of kind of thing that will take them outside their comfort zone. Maybe it's dancing, maybe it's painting, whatever, whatever it may be for each person who's watching this. Just realize that even if you feel that you don't have the inner resolve or wherewithal to get there, you'd be surprised. Just kind of be patient. That's another lesson, is to be patient and let the idea germinate. Really kind of sit in it, let it brew, let it brew, so to speak. Let it simmer a little bit, and you'd be amazed where you can come up with once you have that kind of creative drive. Okay. Now, in terms of the practicalities, how it worked, it wasn't like it was a paid performance or anything like that. It's a pretty much an open mic night at a bar, and a bunch of people get up there and do a stand-up comedy bit in the open mic. And I was one of those performers. I was actually placed second to last, which was difficult as well, because I kind of had to sweat it throughout the night as I waited for my turn to be called up. I kind of wished I had been earlier on in the list, but that's the way it goes. And I have to say, there is a lot of anxiety associated with that anticipation. I was telling friends, it kind of felt like a final exam that I just wanted to get over with, even though it was something that I had wanted to do and I had wanted to try out, and I was excited about it. At the same token, I was extremely nervous about it as well. Okay, even though we're talking about like a 5-minute stand-up bit and you're not in front of Massey Hall or this huge audience, it still is very anxiety ridden. Certainly for somebody like me, this may sound funny given that I have a YouTube channel and I'm speaking to you in this format to the world, essentially, by having a YouTube channel, but it's a bit different when you're doing this in the privacy of your own home or office or studio versus getting up there on stage in front of people. I don't love to public speak. So there is that anxiety associated with putting yourself out there and knowing you're going to be doing something that's beyond your comfort zone, and going second to last didn't help the situation. So that's something else I wanted to bring up for anybody, again, that maybe is thinking of doing this or something else that's kind of outside their comfort zone, is that it's okay to have that anxiety. And what you can do with that is just notice it. Don't try and fight it. Don't try and pretend like it's not there. I found that I was very honest about it. And, rather than trying to suppress that feeling, I talk about it in my Michael Singer videos, which you can see in my video library. Rather than suppressing that, I was kind of just trying to let that energy pass through me and be in the moment. So I found that to be helpful as well, not denying my feelings. Now, just looking, I jotted down a few notes here. Now, when you finally get up there, it's a very surreal moment, right? Because on a personal level, it's something that, you've never thought you would do. And to be standing up there and actually doing it in the moment is very surreal. Okay. So, I kind of felt like frozen in time for like a split second where I'm standing there and I'm looking out at the crowd. Again, the crowd, we're not talking this huge auditorium, the crowd being, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 people, but just looking out there. And it was very surreal. Like, I can't believe I'm the one standing up here looking out at people in the audience. Okay. And I wish I could say I really tried to soak up and enjoy that moment, but I think the anxiety was kind of taking over. Okay. But I do recall having that moment of like, wow, I'm actually doing this. Now, in terms of the actual performance itself, I have to say, and I'm sure this may be obvious to a lot of you, but I do have to say it from somebody that just experienced it. It is much harder than it looks, which I kind of knew going in, but I kind of was so confident that my material was funny. I think I had this mistaken notion that it was going to be great. My first time was going to be amazing, and in reality, that wasn't the case. It was kind of my routine was kind of met with a fair bit of silence, and that's okay as well. Like, I knew going in there that it's a victory no matter what, as I talked about, because I was actually doing something and challenging myself. But obviously I was hoping for, for a strong showing, for, to get people laughing. And that wasn't the case. It was, the laughs were kind of hard to come by. It didn't help. It's funny. Some of the regulars told me afterwards, it was a tough crowd. I don't want to make excuses, but just to sort of, not beat myself. First of all, nobody should ever beat themselves up. And I certainly don't want to do that as well. And I'm very proud that I did it. But, on a practical level, because I'm talking practicalities as well, it happened to have been a very tough crowd. There was one guy in particular, I hadn't seen him at the club before. He was, I wouldn't say he was heckling. I think he meant well, and he was a nice guy, but he was just talking throughout. And I understand why it's so distracting for comics when people in the audience speak out. It really gets you kind of off balance. Now, obviously, if you're a professional stand-up comedian, you're better able to handle it. Although I've seen professional stand-up comedians get very annoyed when people in the audience are talking. But certainly for an amateur or a first-timer like me, it really can be distracting. So that's something else to bear in mind. If you're somebody in the audience at a stand-up comedy performance or whatever the case is, try and keep quiet and let the guy or gal do what they're doing without interrupting, okay? Again, sometimes the interaction with the audience is welcome and the comedians will ask for that. But if they're not and they're in the middle of their routine, then kind of just let them go and don't interrupt, because it can really interrupt the flow. Okay, but anyway, back to my routine. The laughs were, hard to come by. And I was realizing as I was doing it that, wow, even the amateurs that are doing it, the other performers that evening, the ones that are doing it well, they really make it look a lot easier than it is. Okay, so you may find your performance, you may find your bits to be, hilarious. You may have tried it out on other friends or family or whatever, like I did. I tried it out on some friends, and I got some pointers of, what I should take out and what I should add, etc., etc. But ultimately, the ultimate judge is the crowd, and it became very apparent that I've got a lot of work to do on my material. Okay, that said, and I wanted to add as well, I've done videos on the history of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I talk about how self-conscious Jeff Garlin is about his performances. And again, I got another understanding about what that means. Obviously, I've never been on a hit show or anything like that, or been in front of an audience to the mass scale that he has. But on a very small scale, I got a good sense of how one could be self-conscious of appearing in front of other people, putting yourself out there. I say that because I got sent a video. I asked somebody to record the performance, and somebody sent me the video, and I could barely watch it. I was cringing at myself, not just because it was the laughs were hard to come by, but just to see myself up there and how I sound and how I look. It's very hard to watch yourself. So I can only imagine on the scale that Jeff Garlin talks about how difficult it is. Okay. But something else that I wanted to add is that you can make adjustments. And I feel that I have a pretty decent understanding of what went wrong, so to speak, in terms of the actual comedy bits and what this particular audience may appreciate in terms of comedy more than other types of audiences, because I still feel that my bits were funny. I just don't feel like I had the right crowd and the right venue for the type of comedy that I had to offer. That's not sour grapes at all. At the end of the day, that's something I have to adjust to. And I'm not trying to sound egotistical about that, and maybe I'm wrong, but at the other hand, I'm grateful that I still have confidence in that the material that I did prepare, I still think was funny. I know people that were listening to it before laughed, like honest friends who will tell me honestly what they think. But this particular venue, I think, calls for a different brand of comedy. And that means I can make adjustments and maybe I'll go up and do it again. I don't know. I'm still kind of assessing. I'm trying to enjoy the moment. I kind of feel like those athletes, when they're asked about next year as they're celebrating this year's World Series or Super Bowl or whatever. And they're like, we're just trying to enjoy the moment and be in the present. So that's what I'm trying to do as well. I'm trying to just, when I say be in the present, I'm talking about what transpired last night, but it still, hasn't even been 24 hours. So I'm just trying to enjoy the experience that I had, not worry about whether or not I'm going to do it next time. But the point is that you can make adjustments. So even if something doesn't go well or go as planned, don't give up and don't necessarily think that you've got no future in something, because sometimes all it takes is a little bit of a tweak, and it may not even be that huge. It may just be like a minor adjustment to something, and you may really hit your stride then. And the other thing is that beginnings are always difficult, right? So the fact that I didn't have a wonderful outing last night doesn't mean I have no future as a stand-up comic. And I don't mean professionally, but I mean even to do it recreationally as a hobby. Okay, it may just be a matter of getting more confidence, getting my stage presence kind of in order. As I do it more and more, I'll get more of a stage presence and I'll have more energy about it, and I'll approach it from a different way, or I'll make adjustments to the bit. So don't think that if you have, if you are, somebody who wants to do stand-up or whatever, you're looking to, whatever experience you're looking to have, but are feeling kind of anxiety ridden about it, don't think that if it doesn't go well the first time, that means that you don't have a future in it. Okay, sometimes it's just a matter of learning from what happened and making those adjustments, whether they're small or whether they're big. Okay, so that kind of sums up my feelings about the whole experience of doing stand-up. I'm so grateful that I did it, and I'm grateful that I'm able to share with you some of the lessons that I learned. I hope you found that insightful and interesting. And interesting is an interesting word. And if you have any comments or feedback, if you'd like to talk about your first time experiences doing stand-up comedy, or in some other area that you feel that others can learn from, feel free to share that in the comments below. I'm very grateful that I've been getting more and more comments as I continue with these videos, and it's very encouraging to me, and I appreciate you guys for doing that. And I think a lot of people like to see what other people are doing, or what other people's experiences are. Okay, this is obviously my channel, so you're going to hear from me the most. But at the end of the day, everybody has something to offer. So I would love to see your comments on whether it's your first time doing stand-up comedy or otherwise. And obviously, any sort of feedback is always welcome. For those who have subscribed, because our subscriber base keeps jumping up, which I'm grateful for, thank you so much for that. If you haven't subscribed yet, I would be so appreciative if you took a second to subscribe. It definitely helps me, but it also helps you not miss a future video. Also, to hit that like button with the thumb up. And until next time, thanks so much for visiting, and I look forward to seeing you at the next video. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed that video. I've got plenty more in my videos library. If there's a topic you'd like me to discuss, feel free to leave that in the comments and I'll do my best to address it. If you can like the video, I'd be very grateful. As well, if you subscribed, you'd be helping me out. You'd also be helping yourself out to not miss a future video. Thanks so much. Have a great day.